Hi everyone, it's Zara Altair with Actation Now, and this is the Midweek Zap. Our guest today is MaAnna Stevenson. I'm just thrilled. First, I want to tell you we're both having crazy tech problems today. One or the other of us may drop out. If MaAnna drops out, that's it. That's all we get, because she probably won't be able to come back in because there's a storm. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that, and thank you, as always, for your patience. So don't forget, this is a Q&A session for the most part, so be sure to put your questions in the comment stream. So MaAnna, welcome, and tell us just a little bit about yourself. There could be someone here who doesn't know you.
Well, I want to say the southern way to pronounce my name is MaAnna, kind of
Oh,
like
man,
Joe Anna.
all
And
right.
so I get it all kinds of ways. It doesn't matter. Just don't call me bad names, and I'm okay. I'm all right with that.
All right.
So yeah, and thank you so much for having me on. What a fun time this is going to be. I'm just thrilled about it.
That is great. So I know you had some things that you wanted to bring to people's attention. And we both agreed in the green room that first things first is backup.
Oh, absolutely. These are the kinds of things that I see in site audits all the time because I run those for folks and go really deep. And I usually find an average of 26 security holes that no scanner or plugin or anything's ever going to pick up. And most of them are not actually something you can see from your site. So it's really important to have somebody poking around in there and looking at all the things on your account, especially if you've used a lot of plugins and you have a lot of orphan files and folders and junk in the database and whatever, getting all that cleaned up. But one of the main things that I see is people doing a database only backup and then holding those files on their site and in their hosting account. And that's really, really, really bad because backups are your only security blanket these days, really. That's it. If everything else goes to toast, you got your backup files. So you need to be storing those off site somewhere like Amazon S3 or Dropbox or whatever. And you need to have about 3 months worth. So if your storage is only holding 3 or 4 of them, and that's maybe a month's worth if you're doing them weekly or something, that's not nearly enough because you may not realize you've been hacked for several months. So you need to be able to go back for 3 to 4 months at least. And make sure that you're backing up your entire site, everything there, the database, all of your images, the files that are in your root that are associated with your site. Because if you ever, and I guess I should back up and say, if you need to restore it, you better know that you can do that. You know how to do that before you ever need it. So whatever backup solution you're using, make sure that you read the restoration files and you have that handy. Because if you ever need it, you're going to be in a panic and you want to know that you can restore it from that. Don't count on the host backup. They're not guaranteed unless you're paying extra. And even then, they're not guaranteed sometimes. So make sure that you have your own backups. I don't trust that to anybody, but that is your only security blanket.
I'm so glad you mentioned the host, because people think that when their hosting service says backup, it's often once a month, and the day that something goes wrong can be the 30th day of the 31st 31-day month, and you've lost a month's worth of whatever is on your WordPress site. So I think it's really, really important. So that's why we started with that. Okay, and then another thing that comes up is orphans. You want to tell people what orphans are and how they're hiding in there? And
Yeah, if you've tried a lot of plugins and deactivate and delete them, all those files and folders don't necessarily come out of there. They just come out of your plugins list where you can't see them anymore. And so you might have a lot of files and folders lurking around in your hosting account that may, believe it or not, still be hitting on your cron job. WordPress has a cron job, which is the clock. And then you could have a bunch of gunk in your database. Things like word fence, if you tried that and took it out, it leaves 19 to 20 tables in your database. So there could be a ton of gunk going on in there. And I spend quite a bit in site audits cleaning all that kind of stuff out. Um, caching plugins are the same thing. If you've tried 2 or 3 of them, oh man, they leave stuff all over the place and all kinds of files that you have to manually go clean out. So just deactivating and deleting something doesn't get rid of them all.
Okay, and there was something that you said, and now I've lost my train of thought. Because I wanted to ask you about it, but I guess we'll go back to the, oh, WordFence. If people take WordFence out, can we, first question, ta-da.
Okay.
What do you think of WordFence as a plugin for people?
I think it gives you a false sense of security, and that's not just WordFence. That's all of the big behemoth security plugins. And a lot of times they can be more drain on your system if they're not configured properly, and most people don't. They just throw them in there. They can be an extreme nuisance as far as notifications too, which puts another resource drain on your system. And so I don't use them actually, and don't take that for don't use it. This is like talking to Ford and Chevy mechanics, right? And they're going to have their own flavors of things they use. And it's not any one plugin, it's the entire security combo that has to be considered. You have to consider what's going on with your hosting environment and other security things that you do. I do a lot of it manually. And so I don't need the big security plugins. I actually only use one security plugin, and that's Login Lockdown to protect against brute force. And you don't need that if you have WordFence, but because it does it for you. But it introduces its own security issues. Look up back in its update history and see how many times it's been updated for a security problem. And so, that's part of it too. But the resource drain on your system can be extreme, especially if you don't set it up right. So it's not just about one plugin, no matter which one that you use. Even Securi, it's a scanner, it's a malware scanner. Well, it got hit. It had a security issue for something that it's supposed to be protecting you from. So
remember that. That was crazy. Right.
Yeah. And when I find those average of 26 security holes, neither one of those plugins catch any of that. So they are what they are, but I wouldn't trust my site security to one of those plugins. I just wouldn't. Okay. Not that they don't work. They do exactly as advertised.
But it's not enough.
A better way. Yeah, everybody has a different combo. So don't think it's just one plugin and one person like me saying I don't use them compared to one other person saying I do use it, but it's part of a combo. It's the whole setup.
We have a question from William Rock. He wants to know, what's the difference between WordFence and Securi?
WordFence protects you against things like brute force attacks and different things like that. Securi is a malware scanner. So it's an infected file, like a virus scanner, a malware scanner. It doesn't protect you from anything necessarily. It doesn't necessarily block them. It just scans to see if anything has been harmed. A lot of people use those together. They use WordFence to keep the hackers out. And then if something does break through or a plugin breaks down or something like that, then Securi is supposed to catch it. Securi also has a free online scanner that you can run at any time. So instead of installing the plugin and being that kind of resource drain, you may just want to run it as an online scanner. Backup Buddy, which is a great backup plugin that I use and recommend to most folks. Not everybody, but most folks. It's great for the majority of people. It has the Securi malware scanner inside it. So you could run it anytime you like. Okay. That's my understanding because I don't use it either. So unless they've changed it and they're actively preventing something, I don't know if they're doing that or not. I don't think so. I think it just scans.
And then you're a gold mine because Layla Martin says we're only 5 minutes into this and it's already a gold mine.
Absolutely. That's what we mean to do, Zara. Bring it. Y'all bring your questions.
Exactly what we wanted to do. And then do we want to get started in with plugins?
Yes, absolutely. Plugins are a hot topic always.
Yeah.
So, beyond just the conflicts, I think what you're going to find are a lot of resource hogs, and that kills performance. I find that in site audits quite often and suggest other plugins. And people may have 20 plugins loaded And on average, I suggest they either change out or get rid of about 15 of them. So it's a very high ratio of plugins that I suggest they do something else with. Some of those are just serious resource hogs. Things like the redirection plugin, that's a good one. It's great for what it does, but if you don't turn off the log files and the 404 log files and the click-through log files, and all that stuff is building up in your database too. Plus, doing them that way means that people have to open an instance of WordPress for the redirect to even take effect. And there's a much better way to do that in something like your htaccess file. And redirects are so easy to learn how to make. And it hits that htaccess file and bumps off and does a redirect very quickly before it ever opens WordPress. So it's much faster to do that way. But you want to be careful not to clog up your htaccess file with too many redirects too, because you need to keep that file very small or it becomes a performance problem. So pretty links is another one. You know, people use that for affiliate links. Thirsty Affiliates, I think, makes cloaked links or affiliate links. So all those things can be resource hogs. Let's see, another one that I see that people don't do is the WordPress SEO plugin. They don't configure it. They just throw it in there. It's like, okay, there's my silver bullet. All my SEO is done. Not even. It can actually be doing worse on your site if you don't configure it. I see a lot of folks just use the that page analysis tool. Oh, let me tell you a story about the page analysis tool. So I was doing a webinar at the time that I happened to have a post on the front page of Google. And so during the webinar, I told everybody a little bit about what the post was. I didn't give them the exact title. I just gave them the general idea of what the post was on. And I said, okay, you go off and you search for whatever you want to that's related to that post. And sure enough, for every single person in the webinar, I came up number 2 or 3 on the front page of Google. And I asked the phrases that they used that made me come up that way for them. And I said, let me show you something. Went in to edit that post, put that in the page analysis tool, and it came up with a red dot. And so if you ever do get a green dot, you're probably overstuffing, you know, keyword stuffing. And there I was on the front page of Google with getting a red dot on the SEO for that. So that's not what it's all about, but that's what I see most people using it for, and they don't even configure all the rest of the settings. I just put out a post about that, and it can kill your SEO actually. So there are no silver bullets. There are a lot of plugins that folks install and think, okay, I'm done now, and they're not configured.
I think that you're not the first person who's been on the Midweek Zap who talked about limiting the number of plugins that you have on your WordPress site. Ammon Johns, I think,
oh yeah,
2 times that he was here, said the same thing.
Well, so that's a little bit of a myth too. You can have 50,000 plugins if you need them all. There is no limit if you need them all, but you have to be able to look for conflicts and security issues and performance issues. So everyone has to have a reason for being there, and then you have to look at the ROI on it. So for some social media folks, some of my clients are big social media folks. I mean, if I name names, you know who they are, right? Huge social media folks. So for them pulling in their Twitter feed, well, they're a social media guru. They have ROI for that, but it is a huge performance hit. So you've got to have a reason for those things being there. The WordPress SEO plugin, it can provide your XML sitemap, your social tags, your RSS feed, some of your RSS feed stuff to full scrapers, and you don't want it conflicting with other plugins. So, you know, that's a good way to reduce plugins if you know how to configure it.
Right. I think that's being mindful of what your goals are for your WordPress site is really important.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because that is your primary sort of what are the tools that I really need over and above safety, which we addressed at the beginning there. And we have a very generic question, once again, from William Rock. He says, what plugins do you see as something we don't want to install? and it's a double barrel. And what are the importance of making sure you have things updated? Oh, that part's a
Oh
good.
yeah, they're both, yeah, those are both loaded questions. Okay, so I have said this publicly many times and I'll say it again. Shareaholic, run. It's one of the worst plugins on the planet in my opinion. They have been ripped out of the WordPress repository 3 times for injecting them self-injecting malicious code. It wasn't a bug. They chose to do it, and it put up such a security issue that they got ripped out of the repository 3 times for that. It is an extreme load on your site. All sharing plugins, you need to be careful about those because if they're bringing in counts, they're bringing them in from the outside world. Some of those bring them in from places like the Netherlands. So if you're country blocking, you need to be very careful what you're blocking because you could kill one of your plugins doing that. So again, you need ROI for things like that for share. You need to check those things on mobile. And that's another thing about your plugins. Things like Dream Grow Scroll Triggered Box. It may or may not work well on your mobile version. You need to check it on an actual phone. Mobile emulators won't always pick up everything properly. Google Chrome has a developer tools extension that will pick up your mobile theme if you're using a separate mobile theme. But the mobile emulators like Responsinator will not pick that up properly. So you need to be very careful about that and look at things on an actual phone. If you can get to an iPhone and then get to Android, that'll pretty much cover it, but try to get to both if you can. So be very careful about your social share plugins as far as the load. Pretty is not all there is to it.
Right.
I've got a post where
True.
I did head-to-head test on 12 of them, and the one that I was using was by far, I mean, like a long shot, the worst one to use as far as performance. And so it's like, wow, I'm glad I checked, So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's always good to check. Those are great double barrel questions, William. Thank you.
yeah, but the second one was keeping things updated. So that's the only plugin that I can think of off the top of my head that I'll say just run from. But and I'm sure there are plenty of others if I had time to think about it. But keeping things updated, oh yeah, that's an absolute must, especially with all this cross-site scripting errors, security issues that are going on. Yeah, you got to keep things updated big time. And that's why you need to do backups too. I do mine daily. I've moved to doing them daily at this point instead of weekly.
And then Peter Haley, let me see if I can find this. Limit tracker's going up when I'm going down. Here we go. Peter Haley asks, what plugin would you rate as the most important to have and why?
Ooh, okay. Woo. Oh, there's a lot to choose from. I've got 10 plugins that I absolutely, about 10, that I will not do a site without. So I don't think I can get it down to one. But of course, a good backup, whatever. And I use Backup Buddy on most sites. However, a lot of folks who are like craft bloggers, lifestyle bloggers who have tons of images, they have huge sites. Backup Buddy kind of gives up when the archive file gets over about 4 GB. It's just not going to be reliable or to send it off to the remote location. So for those, I think I'm going with VaultPress. I'm kind of leaning that way. I haven't really picked out what other backup solution, but I don't think Backup Buddy is going to work for that. But for everybody else, Backup Buddy is a fantastic solution. If you can't get it to work, it's probably not Backup Buddy. There's probably something else wrong. It has helped me troubleshoot sites like crazy and find all kinds of things that are wrong on them. And I work very closely with the developers debugging stuff like that. And then spam for spam things. Anti-spam bee is what I've switched to instead of Akismet. For one, you don't need an API. You don't need to pay for it. And even Matt Mullenweg himself endorsed anti-spam bee. Now, there is one setting. You can use most of the settings at default, but there is one in there for notifying you. Turn that off. It'll just bug you to death. I've started using it on all client sites now, and I just love it. It's working very, very well. I've only been using it everywhere for about 2 to 3 months, and I'm really enjoying it. Another one for spammy type stuff that's brand new that I'm starting to use everywhere now too is GM Block Bots. It is a sweet plugin. I taught with the developer, and I've been screaming for having this plugin for a while. I hang out with a lot of developer communities, and it's kind of like Akismet is to blocking spam for spammy backlinks. Now, these are things that are kind of silent. You may not even know what's going on with your sites. You need to check your stats to see what's going on. If you check AW stats, if you have hosting that has cPanel, you will see that in there. If you check your Google Analytics, you've probably been filtering these things out because they skew your analytics so bad. It will erode your SEO over time. It's not a security issue, but it will erode your SEO over time. And they were things like buttons for websites and porn sites and all kinds of things. Some of them look innocuous. They don't say porn on them, but buttons for websites and different things. What GM Blockbots does, it's a cloud service, kind of like a Kismet is. So they keep all the bad bots up in a cloud to identify them, and they kick them out before they ever get to your site. And it stopped them but cold. And I've been testing it now for about 2 months. I've got it on every site of mine, all of my client sites, and it is a thing of beauty. And the developer is really keeping up with them too. He's adding to them all the time. Now, that said, there are ghost spammy bots or ghost crawlers that don't actually visit your site, and it won't block those. Nothing blocks those. And this is pretty new. And so we're having a look at it and tracking it and seeing what it's doing to our SEO, but it's too new to tell what that's going to do and how we're going to have to block that. So those are a few of the ones that I think are pretty critical. And then some kind of brute force protection to protect you against a DDoS attack. And that means that the bots are trying to overwhelm your login. And I like login lockdown. There's also limit login attempts. And then in some of the big behemoth security plugins, they have that as well. Oh, one other one.
Okay.
If you don't have this one, is a better text editor. You know, it's that the text editor is the absolute bane of WordPress. Its only purpose is to write well-formatted code for a browser to read, right? And in my opinion, does a piss poor job of it. It writes crap code, and it breaks code. If you've ever tried to embed an iframe, you know that. Tiny MCE Advanced. Oh, it's a thing of beauty. It's by Andrew Oz, who was a WordPress core developer. I don't know why they just don't absorb this into the core. But you need to go through the settings. I got a video tutorial on the quick and dirty so that you can go configure it properly so it'll stop breaking your code and write great code. So that's another must-have too.
Thank you. That was a fantastic list. And I want to tell you that William Rock is posting links to some of the things that you have mentioned. And
well, thank you, William. And I'll tell you another way you can get to them too. I don't mean to keep interrupting you.
Okay.
Zara, if you're in plugins, if you're logged into your WordPress site and you go to plugins and then go to add new, you'll find little links at the top for favorite. If you go there and type in my WordPress username, my WordPress.org username, which is blog aid, and click that, you'll find my favorites. Those are all the ones that are in the repository that are my favorites.
Oh, now, that's an easy way to do it. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Okay, and then we have a lot of questions. Let me go all the way back here. Denver Prophet Jr.
Denver.
Yeah.
He's a bud, man.
Denver.
There's a little something about code. I'm surprised he's asking me any questions, man. The dude knows his business, you know.
He does. Anyway, Denver asked, do you recommend any specific utility to remove orphan tables for WordPress?
Oh, no, I actually don't. There are, what is it, WP Optimize? That's the plugin I've started using. I used WP-cleanup for years, but it hasn't been updated in a long time, and it's hard to find now. WP space cleanup is a different plugin. But I think the one that everybody's using now is WP Optimize. And what I use that for is to clean out the metadata from comments and from post revisions. It's really, really, really sweet for that because it's harder to do that if you go in to manually do that in the table. But for orphan stuff, I do it manually in the database, and that's not something everybody wants to do. I think if plugins are that aggressive, there's also a really good chance it could toast your database. And you don't want to just go be poking around in that. So for the general public, I'd say that's one of those things you need to turn over to somebody who's qualified and just clean it out. You know, my clients who come for site audits, they come back about every year to get a refresher for stuff like this. And, you know, I have a loyalty program for that, not to pitch anybody on anything, but I don't give discounts up front. I give them on the end for loyal folks and just fix it while I'm in there. And it takes less 30 minutes to an hour. And it's because nothing is set it and forget it. There is no such thing as set it and forget it with security and all this stuff. It changes daily. And so cleaning out your database and whatever, man, you better make sure that you've got a great database backup and that you know how to restore it no matter what you do. But I prefer to clean that manually if it gets more aggressive than just taking out that metadata.
Okay, thank you very much. This is just fantastic. You're such a wealth of information. And we have a question from Jessica. I just want to let her know that I'm acknowledging, but we're going to save it till the end, Jessica, because it's really important. And then William Rock has another question. Also, how can we prevent DDoS attacks to the WordPress? As well, DNS, he's got another double whammy.
Yeah, okay. That second one we're gonna have to table. That's pretty deep stuff. That's pretty an advanced thing. But the DDoS attacks, it's distributed denial of service. It's when a bunch of bots gang up on a server or a site and attack it and just overwhelm it to the point it gets shut down. There are also DDoS attacks on your host, and those you can't prevent. That's at the hosting level. But if it comes directly to your site, I use Cloudflare. I really like even the free version. It's a CDN, which is a content delivery network, and it mirrors your site, a cached version of all your pages all over the world. And there's like 15 sites just in the US alone. And so I'm sorry, guys, the clouds are coming in and out, and it's getting light and dark in here. So I'll go ahead and turn up the light a little bit in the room on the camera so you can see me. So I look like I'm fading into the shadows. But Cloudflare bounces a lot of those bad bots off to, it's the only CDN that has a modicum of bot protection even in the free version. And so it's going to bounce a lot of that off in the free version. But other than that, you're going to need a firewall. Now, here's the thing. Here's the trick to all of it. If you've had a site out there for a while, your IP address becomes public knowledge. And the bots go scan all these public directories and they get your IP address. So if they've already got that, it doesn't matter what security you put up, even the paid stuff. Well, some of the paid stuff is going to keep them out no matter what through a proxy, but they've already got the IP. They're just going to run end around whatever you've got and just come straight to the IP and grab it there. The best time in the world to set up something like Cloudflare is the minute you set up your site or the minute you move to a new host, because you're going to have a new IP address and it will hide it forever. The one thing that's going to stick out is your MX record for your mail. So that's just one of the reasons that I advocate everybody get their email off their hosting. There are lots of reasons for this, but that's one of them. It's a security issue. It's a space issue. It's a performance issue. It's taxing your hosting account. Go get it somewhere else. But that MX record will stick out if you have it there. I actually had in one of my advanced WordPress groups, a guy challenge me. He had just set up a new site, hidden it behind Cloudflare, and challenged all of us to find the IP address, and I found it, and it was through the MX record. So, but that's, if you're already under attack, Cloudflare does have a paid version, a $20 version that will stop it butt cold. There are other firewalls that you can get. Some of the security plugins have them, but that's better done elsewhere, not on your site, because it's a resource hog, an extreme one. You really want to do that outside. So some hosts offer firewalls and things. The boutique hosts have it by default. With others, you're going to have to pay more for it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, I've got questions, and I just want to let you know that people are posting links, and then Sheila Hensley posted your top plugins. So
oh, great, thanks.
Really paying attention here.
Yeah, now I have my whole list of plugins on my site on the plugins page. You'll see them all, whether they're paid or free or what. You'll see them all, and I do change that. And then the rest of the list there is all the plugins that I recommend for different things.
Okay, great. And then Glenn Jewett had a question. Why is this? Okay, did this 2 weeks ago. So I read the question. Comment Packer said that it was tired and it's not going to show.
Okay.
But it's a short question. Glenn asks, how do you feel about Symantec added to the account?
Semantic thing. Okay, for the code in your theme. Okay, let's back all the way up and tell everybody what that is, because maybe everybody doesn't know. So it's schema markup. It's not semantic, that's search, but it's schema markup, specifically microdata, which is a part of schema markup. And there's special little tags. So like you have HTML tags that tell things it's a paragraph or it's bold or things like that. Schema markup are special little tags that tell you more about it. So if you have a person there that has a name, it says this is a person, and this is their name, and this is their telephone number, and this is their address, and it connects all of that kind of stuff together. So that's semantic markup, and you have to have it now. And here's the huge thing: WordPress started supporting it in version 3.6, 3.8, somewhere there. It has to go all the way through your theme. If your theme is not HTML5 compliant, you're getting no benefit from it. And I had in one of my Tips Tuesday posts some link that said for 2014, how many hundreds of thousands of new sites that just came online that were HTML5 compliant. It's been around a couple of years now. If yours is not, you're falling further and further and further behind. I had my theme converted. I have a custom theme, and I had mine converted the minute it became available, and I've been reaping those rewards ever since. So it's like crazy, stupid important that you have that on your site. Genesis 2.0, that's where they started supporting it, and I love Genesis. But even if you have a Genesis child theme, if it's not HTML5 compliant, if it's an older theme, it's not supporting it. So you need that. As far as semantic stuff, Lynn, maybe you'll have to tell us what you're talking about, if that's for search for things that are related. So if I use the word WordPress training, then somewhere later I could say WordPress classes, and Google's going to pick them up as pretty much the same thing because they're synonyms. So semantic search is a very different thing from schema markup on your site. Those are actually two different things. So we might want to clarify that. I hope I answered the question you were asking. If I didn't, it's still good information to know.
The schema is different than semantic search, right? Except it is part of the whole big picture.
Yeah, it's a deep subject. So
it is a very deep subject. Not where we're going to go today.
Yeah,
but I want to now address Jessica's concerns, because I think it's a good question. I'm going to do hers both together. Sorry, Jessica, I can't bring them up. She says, I'm thinking of migrating over to a WordPress with WooCommerce, so I am really interested. And then she says, this all sounds very fancy. By fancy, I mean complicated.
Yes, it does. Yeah, the days of DIY on your site are over. I mean, I'm sorry to say it, but we've gotten away with a lot of things for a lot of years that we can't do anymore. One of them is get on crap hosting. I'm just going to flat say it. If you're on $3 hosting, you're in trouble. That's just all there is to it. The days of that are over, as far as it being, it's not going to perform and it's not going to be secure. And that's point blank it. You need to pay more for hosting. Look, there is no other business that thinks they can make money without spending anything. We've gotten away with that attitude for a long time. If I want everything for free, but yet I want to make money, I don't want to spend it on hosting. I don't want to spend it on these premium plugins. I don't want to spend it on tech support. I don't want to spend it on classes to learn how to do anything. I just want to go figure it out, make $1 million. Good luck with that. In a couple of years, I'll see you when you get serious about wanting to do things in a way that actually makes you money and competes with a very crowded online experience. There's a lot of people screaming for attention online. Okay, so cheap hosting is the biggest thing about it, and especially if you're going to do WooCommerce, there's a lot of things that you've got to do with that, like an SSL certificate, and setting up WooCommerce itself. I would hire somebody to do it. Have fun figuring it out on your own. I tried it once. I didn't like it. Now, it's not to say that it's hard. It's to say that there's a lot to it. And you're going to be doing a lot of research, and how much is your time worth? So making sure that your certificate, that you've got the right one and everything is secure, getting your payment gateway set up, all these different things. Some days it's just easier to pay a host that does all this stuff for you at this point. The security, the backups, you're going to pay $40 or $50 a month. But that's just the cost of doing that level of business too. But you really need to check in what these things are doing, because these hosts that do that, because they often have restrictions. You can't just go wild and throw everything at it. Some plugins are not allowed, and you don't have control or access to everything. So you need to do your homework before you do all that. They also have limits on being attacked to death. So, and you have to still do a little bit of your part of security. That's my whole business changed. I didn't want to get into security. I just wanted to primarily look at performance, but they go hand in hand. My entire business changed last year. That's how much the internet has changed. I've been at this 15 years. If that tells you anything.
I know. And then Sheila Hensley, see, okay, the comment tracker is just not cooperating. Sheila Hensley agrees with you. You have to pay to play. Yep.
Yeah, you really do now. And somebody to at least set up your site from scratch, because that one-click installation, I'll forget about it. I fix that stuff for people who've been hacked all the time. Get your basic security set up. It really doesn't cost that much to do it once, and then learn how to care for it yourself. That's why I have clients coming back year after year to get a refresher, and it doesn't cost much, and they keep safe, and they're not hacked, and they're fine. So once you get it set up right and invest in your education a little bit, then you can DIY it after that.
MaAnna, we're coming to the MaAnna. I have to talk all my great aunts. And call me MaAnna.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Zara. Zara.
My grandmother and all my aunts, Gussie and Jessie, everybody from Texas. Okay. So I want to thank you. I can't believe how much information you have jammed into this short time period. And I have to thank the Zapsters for your comments and questions, and especially for all of you who posted more links following up on topics, subjects, and tools that MaAnna mentioned.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. Okay, but something else is there's a new ebook, I hear.
Yeah, there is. I completely rewrote it. It's what every site owner should know. And it's at Bloggade News, and we'll pop that link up there probably after the show too. But I completely rewrote it and expanded it for 2015. I took it from 16 pages to 43. Doesn't matter how long you've been running a site, even if you think you know all these things, you really need to read that book. And it's no fluff. I mean, I just kind of graze across some of the topics, but I give you the real meat of what you need to know. And then if you need to go deeper, there are links for that. So I tried to keep it informative enough, long enough to be informative, but short enough so that you don't have to plow through a whole lot of stuff if that's not what you need to read. But do read the whole book, even if you think you know it. I guarantee you're going to learn something. Guaranteed.
You know what? Whenever you think you know it, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Well, it changes too much. Things have changed. Yeah, that's right. It just changes every day, guys. And that's why I had to completely rewrite the book. And it's free. I want everybody to have this thing. It's completely free.
Thank you so much. You're such an incredible resource. I just have to tell you, I don't think I've ever told you this. You know, when I first started investigating things, I don't know, three names came up in order. I was researching SEO. And the first name that came up was David Amerland. And then there was this tool that people were talking about called Nodex. And then there was, you know, WordPress and what do you do there? And your name came up. Those are my first three names that popped up when I first started looking for SEO, and because I was not happy with what I was being told. So
that's some really awesome company. I'm flattered. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's how it happened for me. So thank Google, because I was searching on Google. And Andrew Hatchett, just backing up what you said, he says you can spend your money learning to be a WordPress expert to do your website, or you can spend your money paying someone to do your site. Either way, you will pay. Free is over.
That's right. Absolutely.
So I think for everyone who has a WordPress site now, I think at the bottom line of what we learned today is you have to pay attention. And you have to stay up to date with all of the changes that have happened, especially in the last year. So if you set your site up several years ago and you think you're flying cool, you better double check things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and so I want to thank you. I want to thank all the Zapsters for all your support today and just popping up with links for everyone else. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And super questions
We
too.
really didn't have too many tech issues once we went on air, so that was a relief. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, MaAnna. That was just incredible, just incredible.
Thank
So
you, Zara. I appreciate it. We'll have to do it
don't know
again.
her, now's the time to start following her, subscribe to the Blog Aid Tuesday tips, and stay up to date. All right, all. Thank you. Thanks again.